Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here again. New Earth Rising on your screen, and we are back. Thank you for being here. And please, I'm going to say this before we forget at the end, please subscribe. Please like the video if you enjoy our talk, which I'm sure you will. And today we are really excited because we have Preston Dennett with us. Hi, Preston.
Hello.
Yay, Preston.
Good to talk with you again. And my cohort here, my shenanigator, is that what you called me last time, I think?
Shenanigator.
Michele. Hi, Michele.
Hi there. Hi, everybody. I'm Michele Ambergeese. So happy to be here. And I'm so happy to be Sharon's co-shenanigator because we just have so much fun. One of these days, we're going to have to record what we do before we get on here because it's pretty darn hilarious. And having Preston here with us too, he's a crack up. So one of these days we'll treat you to that too. But for now, we got some fun stuff coming up. So I'm super excited.
Totally. And Preston, will you share a little bit about your background? And I'll put everything down in the details as well. But you are, I already know this, Michele and I know this about you, that you are a prolific writer. You've written, what, like 5 million books by now? Something like that?
No, it's under 1 million.
Oh, is it? Okay. Is that your goal for this lifetime?
It's almost embarrassing. Yeah, I've written some books.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, 28 or 29 now? 29? Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, nice. So I am reading your out-of-body experience book, which I really enjoy. And I have your other book. What was the one you were just talking about? The series you were just talking about.
Oh yeah, Not From Here.
Not from here. Yes, I have that one. The first one, I think, which I really enjoyed too. You know, there's some crazy stories out there. Thank you so much for putting people's stories together. And well, you've had your own experiences too, but so that people can have that voice, because a lot of times people don't, as you know, don't know how to express their experiences, or they think that they're crazy, that type of thing. So you are an angel to them, I feel, in helping them be able to get their story out there.
I sure hope so. Yeah, there's a lot of people having these experiences.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of researchers out there, but a lot of the researchers aren't putting out their stuff and, publicizing it in any way. And in a way, I think a lot of us who research the subject are kind of doing it for ourselves to sort of get a handle on it and understand ourselves. So I'm really happy to be able to, share my research with other people, because so many people are dealing with this. And some people have a real hard time. It can be very scary. It can really upset your worldview.
Sure.
And other people are just la, having fun. I mean, just absolutely embracing it. It's very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so if you could just share a little bit about your background and how long you've been researching, and I know you've had your own experiences too.
Yeah, gosh, most of my life now. It's shocking to me because this was not anything I was ever looking for. As you may know, I did come to this field skeptical and really resistant to the subject. I just didn't believe UFOs were real. The stars are too far away. Don't people understand how far the stars are? ETs could not come here. But, this was a false assumption. I assumed that if ETs were coming here, it would be by fossil fuels, propellants. So yeah, 1986 hit me real hard. I was a young man, 21 years old, and 5 of 6 kids, and I'm number 5. So heard a report on the news about a sighting over Alaska. Told this story many times, but long story short, this pilot saw a UFO and it got me really intrigued. And I started asking people within my family, everyone I knew actually, what do you think of this crazy pilot? What do you think of UFOs? And lo and behold, a good quarter of the people I knew had really profound encounters.
Wow.
And and not just with UFOs, but some had near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, dreams which had come true, hauntings, telekinesis. Sasquatch even turned up at some point. It was really a big period of adjustment in my life.
Wow.
Yeah. So you also are a out-of-body experiencer. I mean, you're an astral projector, that you do that on a regular basis, correct?
Yeah, it came at the same time,
Okay.
oddly enough, or synchronistically, perhaps. Pretty sure that it wasn't a coincidence. so yeah, since 1986 is when it started, oddly enough. And I embraced it wholeheartedly, because all it takes is one, and you are on a journey into another world that is unbelievably fascinating, absolutely unlimited, and is gloriously fun. I cannot get over it. It's so much fun.
I agree. Once you start traveling consciously, because I'm also an explorer, once you start traveling consciously, there's nothing to compare. And this, well, not that I don't love my life, but this life just seems heavy compared to in the body, compared to what we can do in the out of body state. Flying is my favorite thing to do. Well, one of the favorite things to do, one of my favorite things to do in the out of body state, definitely.
Yeah, I still remember one time, because normally I'd be out for a minute, maybe. Well, in the beginning, it was 5 seconds. And I kind of upped it to 10 seconds. And by the end of a year or two, I was like, wow, I did a whole minute. It took me years to get, up to an hour. But one time I was out there for, must have been 2-3 hours, flying across the San Fernando Valley, thousands of feet up in the air.
Wow.
I'm like, whoa, gosh. I'm so glad I'm out of body, because if you fell from this distance, you'd splat like a pancake.
Oh, wow.
And it's just so unbelievably, well, like you say, freeing and fun. It's the best part of it. Flying, turning on angles, doing loop-de-loops, and
Right.
skiing across great distances. I once went from San Diego to LA and back, and started doing long distance traveling. It's fun.
Wow.
You're your own airplane. So Michele, have you had any flying dreams?
A lot of them. I actually just had one the other night. I was flying and then flew down into a tunnel, which is what I kind of tend to do, is I go through wormholes and tunnels in my flying dreams. Oftentimes I have dolphins leading the way.
Yeah.
And so that's where and I often wondered, I'm not sure if I'm having an out of body experience or if I'm having a hallucination, if I'm just, I don't really know what it is. And that's one of the reasons I'm so fascinated with the subject, and also with Preston, just because, we've known Preston for a while, and Preston, you're so down to earth about how you talk about it. It's not like, you're not like trying to sensationalize anything. You're just like, boom, this is how it happens. And it's so fascinating. And it's almost like, it makes me feel like I'm not crazy. When I hear you talk about these things and flying and all this stuff, I'm like, oh, maybe that was something, maybe that time I was flying through that wormhole and the dolphins were taking me and we landed in this big white area, and maybe that was something and not just a dream. And I love this. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. I'm going to really want to play with it more and really try to do it consciously. Because the other day I was flying up, or the other night flying up, and then came down and went into what looked like a cave, and went under some mountains and came out, and there's a old man sitting by a campfire, and we sat down and chatted, and
Wow.
then I woke up and had to pee.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That's what brings you back.
Well,
Those bodily functions.
it's interesting you mentioned tunnels, because that's a big thing when you're out of body. And often I'll find myself like in a corridor, a tunnel,
Okay.
anything with, a valley. with borders and doors and portals, and which is,
Oh,
and if you read about near-death experiences, I mean, that's almost the rule. People are pulled up into a tunnel of light. And if you start doing OBEs, yeah, there's a lot of, they'll be treading along and sucked right into a tunnel.
well, and that's, yeah. Interesting. So maybe I am doing this. I was telling Sharon, it's like, I don't know about this stuff. It's really cool. And I don't doubt that it happens, but I don't know about it. Maybe I do.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, fascinating.
Everybody, every night, whether they remember it or believe it, or that's where you go when you sleep. This is how we, the only way we can live here in the third dimension is taking a break every, 16 hours or so to rejuvenate, go to the other side. And I've come to sort of realize, or this is sort of my assessment, I should say, that not only do we all do kind of pop over to the garden realms, the other side, but go all the way up to the very highest dimensions and sort of touch source and sort of trickle back down. But that part is really hard to remember. But yeah, we definitely all do it.
Wow, that's very comforting, actually, to think of that, because it's weird. It's like, boom, you're out. It's like, where do you go? What is happening when we sleep? It's like we're out. It's a very interesting thing, and we all need it. And I never thought about it as a time for rejuvenating.
Yeah, if you ever do sleep deprivation, it's very interesting what happens, because the second you close your eyes, you start having very vivid imagery, very lucid. You start almost dreaming while you're awake, which is essentially lucid dreaming, and lucid dreaming is essentially an out-of-body experience. And I have to laugh when I read, people who are, quote, sleep experts, and they're talking about, you go unconscious when you sleep. No,
Yeah,
you
it
don't.
doesn't seem right.
You are switching channels is what you're actually doing. And they actually, brain experts know this, because when you go to sleep, your brain is still very active.
Right.
So yeah, we definitely need more scientists looking at what sleep actually is.
And since it's natural for us anyway, I believe that we have been programmed not to take the time to become conscious in our out-of-body travels, or our higher, our multidimensional travels, that type of thing. That way we aren't able to remember how immense we really are. That we are programmed to think and believe that we are just this. This is it. You die, you either go to heaven or hell, type of thing, or whatever. You're just this body. This is everything. But we are multidimensional. And in my travels, I've even seen myself as different types of beings. Non-human, mer. I've seen myself as a mer many times, a mermaid many times. So there's so many things that we can experience, that we are experiencing, right? That we have access to, that we just are cut off and don't remember, and afraid, fear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear with that out-of-body experiences. And I think that's kind of a misnomer anyway. I believe we're just moving up in frequency and changing, like you said, switching channels, switching frequencies.
Yeah. I like that, switching channels.
I think it's a very accurate analogy. I really do. And, think of like, if I could only become conscious in the out-of-body state, is also a little bit tricky, because people are conscious. You are conscious on the other side. You are walking around and doing stuff, and you're fully conscious. But there's this weird shift up and shift down where it's compartmentalized. So it's very much like switching channels, and you're out of that program and into another program. And the real trick is sort of dissolving that barrier between the two.
Right.
Because I've talked to my brothers and sisters while they're out of body, and they're fully aware, and they're fully aware they're on the other side, and they're fully aware they won't remember. I got into an argument with them, with my brother Stephen once, because I was shocked. I was trying to figure this out. I'm like, Stephen, oh my God, we're out of body. You know that, right? He's like, yeah, I know that. I'm like, oh, what? Because he doesn't believe this. He thinks I'm crazy. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then. He's like, yeah, I know. Had the same argument with my sister. She calls it the in-between place when she's there. And I said, okay, Stephen, well, you'll remember then. He said, no, I'm not able to remember. And that just threw me for a loop. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, I don't know how to do it. I can't. I'm not going to remember this.
So he was aware of that.
Yeah. Which is so weird. And I ended up, telling you, remember. And we started arguing a little bit, friendly enough, because, he is my brother and we love each other.
Sure.
But he says, like, just stop telling me, because I'm not going to remember. I'm like, well, try. And he's like, well, I'll try, but I can't do it. And I, called him up and like, any dreams last night? Anything? No.
So.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm sure that Preston, that you'll come across people. I come across people all the time, and I ask them, "Are you dreaming? Do you know you're dreaming? Are you dreaming? Are you dead? Are you out of your body?" That kind of thing. I'll ask them, and it's very rare. Once in a while, it's happening more and more lately because I'm going to different, more conscious areas, I guess, more objective areas where they will know that they are and a lot of times they're projections, right? But sometimes we'll come across dreamers, or we'll come across an actual entity that is aware that they are not dreaming, which is rare. But I remember I came across one gentleman who actually knew that he was projecting, and we were so excited. I'm surprised I didn't lose my lucidity there, but we were so excited. We exchanged names and addresses and phone numbers. But for the life of me, I couldn't bring it back. I just brought back his name and a little bit of his address, or I can't remember. I'd have to look back at my journals, but this was like 5 years ago. But it was just so exciting that we actually were able to have a conversation. We were both projecting, which is really rare.
Yeah, I remember in the beginning, I'd pop out and see all these people, and I'd be like, "You're dreaming, you're one of my dream characters," and they'd look at me like I was nuts, because they think they're real. But you can tell when a person, to a certain extent, once you've done this, is a projection, as a hallucination, part of a lucid dream.
Right.
And it was very confusing in the beginning, because the experience is very dreamlike, and you can fall right into a dream. I mean, there had been times I was out of body. It was very real. It turned out to be a lucid dream, because I would do various techniques. One is all illusion end. Is basically
all illusion end. Mm-hmm.
And I was out flying around, and I'm like, is this a dream or is this not? What is going on? And I'm like, all illusion go away, all illusion go away. And this person comes up to me and it's like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm not sure this is real or not. And he said, what you want to say is just all illusion end. And I said, oh, all illusion end. And the whole environment faded around, and I was in this different room. Mm-hmm. And there were people there. I'm looking at them and like, wow. And we talked a little bit, and I ended up going back to my body, and I'm lying there in bed. And suddenly a voice comes in. I'm awake, mind you. I am awake, lying there in bed, like, wow, I just had a really good one. And a voice came in my head, and it was the same guy. And he's speaking to me telepathically. I've never, ever had this. And he's like, why did you contact us? And I'm like, oh my gosh, because I want to learn. I just want to grow and learn. And he said, oh, okay. And or something like, we will meet again, or we will help you.
Wow.
But I was awake, and I'm hearing voices. I'm like, uh-oh.
Welcome to my world.
Like I finally cracked the melon.
I had an experience when we were talking about projections, or our other selves in our dreams, or out of bodies. I had an experience where I was sitting there talking to my guide, and we were sitting at a bar type of scenario, or restaurant bar, and there's people around, and there's a band playing, and we're talking, and I asked him, I said, so how many of these people here, how many of the people around us, around me, are how many, what did I say? How many are real? How many people are not projections? That's it. How many of these people are not projections? And he went like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he was the only one that was not my projection.
So when you guys talk about projections, are those your projections that you're projecting out there as aspects of self? Or are there other people's projections that you're running into? What are those projections?
Well, according to dream theory, it's aspects of yourself. And I tend to believe that that's true. You are sort of projecting your memories of people you know, or even don't know. It's really odd because you're looking at people like, well, if you make up this whole environment, you make up all these people, we're really talented at creativity, creating rooms and forests and mountains and homes. You can create anything. So yeah, these are aspects of yourself and often are presenting sort of suppressed emotions or things you're trying to work through. Because there's a pathway to becoming full on lucid and aware and breaking through the delusions that are surrounding you. We have this sort of stream of consciousness that's constantly in our mind. And that's what dreams are. You slip right into that stream of consciousness and you create a dream, a false reality, which isn't really false. It's just a reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. And it's funny because I would run up to these people. I'm like, you're one of my dream characters. And they don't believe you. And you're like pushing them around. You can do things with them. I mean, you can interact with them, but they are not quite, when you're with a real person, there's an inner quality to their presence. There's a glowing to their eyes. There's a best way I can put it is a quality of consciousness to them. You know what I mean, Sharon?
Oh yeah, definitely. You can tell. There's an awareness in their eyes for sure.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I asked my guide one time how he could tell that the difference between the me there that doesn't have the me here merging with that the me there, because what I understand is I have a life there with him. I mean, I know that, and so we have lives. We have other lives in the other dimensions, in the other realities. So I have a life with him, and I asked him how he can tell that if he could tell that when I'm projecting, the Sharon here is projecting to whoever that is in that lifetime, the Sharon there. And he said that, yes, he could tell. And it's something very similar to what you were just saying, Preston, is that there's a more of a, it was intuitive or it was telepathic, so it wasn't really in words, but there's more of a glow or an awareness or, when we just have all our shit together, excuse my language, we just have everything together kind of thing. We just kind of glow and we're feeling good. It was that, what he explained to me, it was there was more of my presence there.
Yeah.
It's almost like life force energy.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah, definitely. I have a hard time with the words, but it makes sense when we pull ourselves together that we would have more life force there. And what you were saying, Preston, about that stream of consciousness and moving into those parts of ourselves, being aware of those other parts of ourselves who have other lives and who have other experiences, other expressions. I wonder if the goal here, kind of, sort of, is to be integrated and being aware of our other expressions as much as we can. Without, isn't that removing the veil? That's removing the veil.
Yeah, we're all clouded by our own thoughts to such a degree. And if you meditate, you'll start realizing, like, you think you're clear-headed, but the fact is you are making plans that your subconscious is like roaring. It's this roaring symphony that is absolutely stealing a lot of your attention. And this is why it's so difficult to sort of reach that out of body state, because all your consciousness, your energy is devoted to, the songs you just listened to. There's a layer on the top surface of your stream of consciousness that is all the things you procrastinated. And below that, there's the song that is stuck in your head. Below that, there's, the plans you're making. And below that, there's, issues that you have not dealt with, fear, or, the 7 deadly sins, so to speak. Gluttony, anger, fear, laziness. All these things are stealing your consciousness, and people aren't even aware of it until you start meditating. You're like, wow, we have a lot going on in our heads that we're not even aware of. And so that's the whole trick to doing this, is sort of learning how to clear your head and step away from that constant roaring stream. It's funny, I'll be laying there in meditation and a marching band will start playing. I'm like, oh, here we go. Oh my God. Like, oh, and it's just a lot to deal with. And it's really, once you move past that, you're free a little bit, or slightly freer, I should say.
Yeah. I notice the more I meditate, the clearer my out-of-body experiences are, the higher vibrational they are, because then I'm not dealing with so much of the layers like you're talking about that we haven't cleared or dealt with, or cleared. I can't think of a better word.
I'd often pop out of body, be like, yeah, okay, let's do something. And off I'd go, and it would be a pretty short one, or wouldn't go very far. Now I've learned a new technique, and I'm so happy because it's helping me extend my OBEs and really achieve my intentions. As soon as I pop out, first thing I do is like, calm down. Okay, let's meditate out of body. And you sort of sit down and you're like, wow, I'm out of body, because your first urge is you're zinging with energy. You want to go do stuff.
Right.
And it's very easy to slip off. It's almost like walking a tightrope, sort of.
Definitely.
When you're out of body, because you can go on either side and you fall right into a dream, or you're off into your adventures and you become very absorbed in it. But by meditating, and then you can increase your awareness and your consciousness, and you become fully awake, more awake than you are in body, which is hard to describe. But I'm like, wow, okay, this is amazing. Okay, now I'm starting to get it. And it's funny because when you do this, you stay out longer. And I was out there on the other side and just exploring this little realm. It's different there. It's not like a planet, they're like bubbles of environments, I guess would be one way of a realm. I don't know how else to put it. And I was just hanging out there and looking at the nature, and I walked up to the edge of it where it's foggy and stuff, and like, wow, this is the edge of where this reality is. And like, this is very interesting, because I was exploring the environment, and I started to feel like I was really there, and Earth was going away to an extent like, if I don't leave now, I will probably not be able to make it back. And normally I don't feel that kind of concerned, because that's really not a concern. We all go out of body.
It's not.
No, it's not, because it's as safe as sleeping. We're all doing it. Your cord is going to pull you back, the silver cord. But you start to feel the realness of it to an extent. Like, I'm like, okay, maybe I should just go back now. And you reach a state of super consciousness that you just can't get here, I guess would be the point I'm trying to make.
Okay, I'm going to try that. I've done the oming, and Jürgen Ziwe talks about oming or oming in his books, and I've omed. Well, I've sat there and omed as soon as I get out, and that sends me through the roof with the frequency into higher planes. But I've never sat and meditated in and out of body.
Yeah, there are mantras you can do. One is, because I think it's a famous philosopher, Uspensky, said, you cannot say your name in the dream state. I'm like, that's ridiculous. You got to be kidding me. And he had a few, there's some writing about this. People would say their name, and the dream would shatter. I'm like, nah, well, let's try this. And I popped out of body. I'm like, my name is Preston. Looking around, well, no, okay, maybe I need to say my last name. And had to do it 3 or 4 times before I got any effect. And it was really startling. I shouted, I am Preston Dennett. And all of a sudden I was propelled up into a higher realm.
Mm-hmm.
And all these lights were going off like fireworks and silver sparkles. And it was very much a divine light.
Yeah.
Like, very cool. But real quick, here's something that was just so bizarre. I'm like, okay, I'll try this. I don't know if you've heard of Samael Eon Weor. Last name is W-E-O-R, Samael Weor. And he's does Gnostic wisdom, or he's written a bunch of books, and he's sort of your guru type guy who's written on out-of-body travels and how to become enlightened and this sort of thing. And he says, here's a mantra, and I'm not going to tell you what happens, but you should say this when you're out of body or, in a lucid dream. And it's so silly. I kind of laughed when I heard this. The mantra is Geom, Reom, Om, Bor, Bu, Mama, Papa.
Oh.
Geom, Reom, Om, Bor, Bu, Mama, Papa. I'm like, Mama, Papa, really? Fine, I'll try it. And boy, oh boy, did it work. And that was shocking to me, because often I'll do these, experiments. People say one thing in a book, and I'm like, well, I'm going to try that. I'm like, yeah, sure. That didn't work out. This one did.
By work, what happened? What do you mean it worked? It brought you higher or further in?
Well, he wouldn't say what happens.
Oh, okay.
And you're not supposed to say, but if you want, I will tell you.
Oh, well, you don't have to tell us. You don't have to tell us.
Tell us.
It's kind of fun if it's a surprise, but I will say
Okay.
something will happen. And
Something
for
will
me,
happen. Okay.
the first time I did it was in a lucid dream. I wasn't fully out of body, but I was aware enough to say it. And I said it. And right when I reached the last syllable, my consciousness, it's very hard to describe, but it kind of exploded and expanded and divided. And I was having 7 dreams at once.
Oh.
Whoa.
And it was really disorienting, because it is hard to focus on 7 different things.
Yeah.
It's like, like looking at 7 different movies on the wall, except you're inside each one. So it's kind of like bilocating almost.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, this is amazing, amazing, amazing. And I would do it over, many times. And sometimes I'd just go, gah, and then boom, it would start. And another time I did it, and I popped out of body. I was fully out of body, and I'm in my living room. And I said the whole mantra, and the environment started to shake like an earthquake. I'm like, ooh. So I said it again and again and again and again. And everything was just vibrating with power and kind of exploded into light.
Wow.
It was really cool. Yeah.
That's
So try that. I'd like to.
Yeah, you'll have to tell me it afterwards so I can make sure I spell it right. I will try it. When you were talking about your name, it reminded me of something my guides told me to do when I go out, is to say, start out with I am Sharon Sananda Kumara, and repeating that mantra. And it took me higher and higher. And then after that, when I got to a certain level, they told me to repeat I am an angelic being. And then I got higher and higher. And then I am a galactic being, I think it was after that, but it got me higher and higher. And then at that point, I remember seeing a sun, and I was trying to get to that sun, which source, whatever it is. And as I'm repeating these mantras to myself, I'm moving up the spectrum, trying to get to that sun. And as I'm flying up to it, I come back. I don't remember if I got to it, and I just don't remember, but
Yeah, I love the higher level OBEs, but they're very, very hard to bring back.
Mm-hmm,
I remember one of my best was, because you hear about the light from near-death experiencers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, I'm not sure I've ever done that. And so that's kind of my MO. Like, if they can do it, I can do it. So I thought, let's go to the light. And I finally did it and I saw it. And it was kind of off there in the distance. I'm like, all right, let's go. And I was able to sort of get into it, but not as far deep into it as I would have liked. But I got a taste of it. And those ND ears are right. There is a sense of belonging and oneness and knowingness and omniscience and omnipotence in the light. That is like, okay, this must be nirvana. This is what people probably talk about when they say nirvana, because it was nice. I'm like, oh, finally, okay, I'm just going to stay here. No taxes. I don't have to worry about, getting my driver's license renewed and my car smog checked and paying that darn bill and cutting the grass. I mean, this is fine. I'm happy here. Man, oh man, I could live on the other side just fine.
We do live on the other side.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
But then we come back here.
Yeah, I'll never forget how disappointed I was one time, where I got to a point. Oh, I know what I want. When you were talking about how you were concerned that you might not make it come back. You were so high that you might not come back. And I was with my guide, and I said, can I just stay here? Because I was out quite a while, and time there is not the same as here, depending on how the frequency. So I was there probably a couple weeks, a month, something like that, because I was actually engaged in my life. Here, maybe 30 minutes, an hour. I said, can I just stay here? And he said, no, you're not finished yet. He told me I'm 2/3 of the way.
Hey, that's encouraging.
It's encouraging. Yeah, I guess that's another 30 years. But yeah, it's difficult when you are in those experiences and you find yourself back in your physical body. Sometimes.
This is one of the reasons I'm writing books so furiously, so I can complete my mission and go.
There you go. Yeah.
Like, how many books do I need? Maybe 31, 32.
A million. A million. You can't leave. You can't leave it yet. Of course, we're all moving up anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've come to realize like life is such a gift, and it's my understanding that there are a lot of people waiting in line to get onto Earth and get the Earth experience. And as I always bring up this quote from Robert Monroe because I love it and it just helps me stay on Earth and appreciate it. People who graduate from the Earth School are widely respected throughout the universe. Yeah. And it's not everyone who, has gone through Earth School. And so I can just imagine 1,000 years from now or whatever, someone's going to come up to me like, oh, you went to Earth? How was it? I'm like, oh, it's great. You got to try it. And they're like, well, what is it like? I'm like, well, there's pain. They're going to be like, what's pain? I'm like, oh God, how do you experience, how would you ever describe a third dimensional experience to someone who's never had it? Yeah. There's no way. Yeah. So we experience things here, which are very valuable.
Totally. I just want to share one last thing, and then we're going to move on, I think, to Sasquatch. I want to talk about Sasquatch. Well, I had whatever anyone else wants to share, but I had an experience where I'm with my peeps, some of my peeps there, and they're asking me how I'm there to report on Earth, and I'm one of them. And they're wearing robes, and they have the bald head and the blank faces, and they're asking me, how was Earth? And I said, and I remember this very clearly. And they called me a different name than Sharon. They called me something else, but I didn't bring that back. I said, it has its challenges, but it also has its rewards. And then I was in there reporting on the experiences I was having, but I didn't bring back the memory of that. But when I did come back to my body, I remember being out quite a while. When I did come back to my body, I was really disappointed. Because I felt that I had finished. I had graduated, and I'm okay. Here I am back with these peeps who I am reporting to, because there wasn't anybody else in that group who was having this experience, and there was maybe about 20 of us. And it took me a while to integrate back. Not that I mean, I love my life and I love it here, but it's just it's a different feeling for sure.
I had one
Yeah.
psychic tell me, like, she's like, huh, she's looking at me. I've seen several psychics over the years, which is so much fun. And apparently I'm very easy to read, because they're like, I'm very impressed, because they're very, the good ones are very detailed.
Mhm.
And they will say stuff like, okay, I absolutely believe you, because how could you possibly know that? One lady very early on says, you would be really good at OBEs. Boy, did I laugh hard. One's like, what's with you and shipwrecks? Well, I have every shipwreck book there is.
Oh, wow.
I'm obsessed with shipwrecks. At any rate, she said, I've never seen this before. Your entire soul group is on the other side.
Oh,
I'm like, what? No wonder I am so drawn to that. She's like, yeah, I don't know what you're doing here. You must be here to teach her something, write books or something. I'm like, yeah.
or something.
I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. So it's very interesting to me. I miss my peeps on the other side.
Yeah. We can relate to that, huh, Michele?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so fascinated listening to this, because I'm just, every time we do this, I'm like going, well, I do have that experience. I need to go read the rest of Preston's book and start learning how to do this.
And take my course.
When does that start?
Sunday. Yes. For people who want to learn.
It's
Yes,
worth
I
doing.
did not know of this. And how do our listeners find this? I'm a listener.
Oh. Listen up. They can go to my website, SharonSananda.com. I'll have it in the details. The link.
What time does it start?
It starts at 6 p.m. Well, it's a 21-day course. It starts at 6 p.m. on the 6th Pacific time until 8:30. I have 4 live classes and then a forum where everyone connects in the forum and shares. So there's guidance throughout the whole thing and connection throughout the whole course.
I can't encourage people enough. It will change
be
your
there.
life.
Mhm.
So worth it.
Definitely
I will be
worth
there.
it. Yay.
That is so cool. Ask and ye shall receive.
There you go.
So let's get on to the Sasquatchology.
I like what you called them earlier before we recorded.
What did we call? Oh, having sex squash. Watch.
Preston was telling us that there are people who have had encounters, correct?
Intimate encounters.
Yes, which is, I know, phantasmagorical to think about. And I understand people are skeptical of Sasquatch, because I was, even after I believed in UFOs and ghosts and OBEs and pretty much everything. I'm like, no, I don't, not Bigfoot, go away, please. What if it's real? This is going to piss me off, because that's a lot to handle. And I had no choice when a guy named Robert called me one day, like, a UFO landed in my backyard. I'm like, oh, tell me about it. And he described, this object landing in his backyard, which happens to overlook the LA National Forest in Canyon Country. It's a pretty remote area. This was in the late 70s, far more remote than it is today. And I'm like, okay, very interesting. He told the whole story, and he says, it's not over yet. I'm like, okay, what happened next? He says, well, the very next day, I had a Sasquatch encounter. And I said, what? He says, it was in the same exact area where this UFO was. And he says, I was in telepathic contact with it. I'm okay. He says, yeah, it was very angry at my dogs. My dogs were going crazy. It knew I was watching it. It was going both ways. And it roared. And he says, listen, I know what coyotes sound like, and wildcats. And I grew up in Topanga Canyon. We had a house several houses down, which had cougars, the Mercury Cougar commercials. Those were his cougars.
Wow.
And so we would hear them and I'm huge on animals. I've got all the books on bears. I was at the zoo once when a lion roared right next to me. And so I kind of know animal sounds is what I'm trying to say. And he was kind of the same way. And he says, this thing roared in a way that made your chest vibrate. And whatever it was huge barrel-chested animal, not a bear. And after that, he had a poltergeist outbreak. So this was one of these mixed motif cases, which show a tie-in of various paranormal phenomena. When I'm still trying to completely figure out what's going on here, but I think in some cases, people reach a level of awareness where it draws these things in, or the veil becomes thin in a certain area, or something's going on that I don't fully understand. But that was my first exposure to Sasquatch. And that's when I started researching it. And I started checking out books and was floored, absolutely knocked my socks off. Because I had, like UFOs, assumed there was not a lot of evidence and that it was just people's stories. Boy, was I wrong. Really wrong. It's worldwide. It's been, accounts reach back hundreds of years. The evidence, physical evidence, is overwhelming. It's fairly conclusive. It's not just, footprints. There are hair samples, there are blood samples, fecal samples, urine samples, genetic testing done on a lot of this stuff. And currently it's really quite advanced. And a lot of very, prominent anthropologists, Jeff Meldrum is one, but Jane Goodall says flat out, you may be surprised, but I am certain Sasquatch exists.
Yeah.
So yeah, the evidence is absolutely overwhelming. And now I've got a bunch of Sasquatch books, started getting my own Sasquatch cases, and eventually had my own encounter, actually.
Ooh,
Wow.
do tell, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. I don't normally talk about it because it is a lot for people to swallow, but I'm the kind of researcher,
Bring it.
Talking about UFOs and listening to people is one thing. I wanted to see them, and I did. And when people started telling me, oh, we're having ghost encounters, our house is haunted, I'm like, I'm coming over. I want to see it too. And I've had ghost encounters. And when I read about OBEs, I'm like, well, all right, this is something I can do. So that's kind of the way I really approach these subjects. Is first I do my armchair research, and then I interview, and then I dive in the deep end. I'm like, bring it on. I want to see Sasquatch. And a lady called me up who is a contactee, who started having Bigfoot encounters. She lived in Acton, and this is sort of overlooking the LA National Forest on the other side, sort of from the high desert. And I looked up, that area. Sure enough, it's a high Bigfoot report area. She says, I'm in contact with this thing. I think it likes me. It lives in this tunnel underground. It's screaming bloody murder in the middle of the night. It sounds like a woman screaming. I'm like, yep, that's what they do. And she says, it smells like dirty socks and death and garbage. And I'm like, yeah. She started telling me all these details. She found footprints. It left a spine of an animal on her front doorstep. It climbed the tree next to her house and cracked it in half. Her son saw it. Her roommate saw it. So it wasn't just her. One night, she says, there was a big clunk on the roof of her house. And she's like, oh my gosh, it's out there. It's out there. What's it doing? Wake up the next morning and there's a boulder on her roof. She's like, what's it doing? Why would it do that? Well, Sasquatch are huge on rock throwing. That's what they do. They're very vocal. They whistle. She described that. And she says, Preston, I think it wants to kidnap me. I'm like, oh, don't worry. That never happens. And I thought, wait a second. After I spoke with her, I'm like, wait, I think there are a few Bigfoot kidnapping. And I looked it up and I started scouring the literature again, because this is when I really started getting into Bigfoot. Was when I started buying the books. I'm like, oh my gosh, there are 10, 20, 30 accounts of Bigfoot kidnappings. And some people have been amorous with them, intimate. This does happen. And so I had to call her back. I'm saying, listen, there are accounts. I don't want to scare you, But yes, that does happen. People have, been picked up and kidnapped by Bigfoot and escaped. There's some very well documented cases of this. And the Native Americans talk about this. Babies would be taken. Not all Sasquatch are your friends. They can be very dangerous. They are a somewhat standoffish people, very isolating, very separating themselves from, public view. Can be very, very friendly as well. And people have relationships with them. Telepathic communications, will exchange gifts. There are a good dozen accounts of people whose lives have been saved by Sasquatch, and a good dozen of accounts of people who've been attacked by them. I don't know of any case of anyone who's been killed. There may be one or
That's
two,
good.
but by and large, no, you don't have to worry about that.
Maybe they were defending themselves.
They can be absolutely hostile, for sure. And the Native Americans have a lot of respect for them.
Yeah.
So anyway, I go up to this lady's house because she's like, I can tell you where it lives. I know exactly where it lives. Maybe we'll have an encounter because it's coming around a lot. I'm like, okay, I'm on my way. And we went up there, and she lived about 3 miles off the 5 freeway, which is, very busy freeway. But you go 3 miles away and it's stark wilderness. This is, Acton wasn't a densely populated area. This is in the mid 1990s. And so we're at her house, and I knew her pretty well. She'd become a good friend because I'd interviewed her about her UFO experiences, which are very extensive. And off we went in her car up this, let me see, no, it was my car. I was driving, and she says, it's up this dirt road. And we went up this dirt road another 2-3 miles into the LA National Forest. And by the time we got to that area, it was dusk, turning to dark very quickly. And it was very mountainous. And that, by mountainous, I mean these mountains were at 45-degree angles and very thickly brushed with, lots of vegetation, brush, and trees, to the point where you couldn't hike it. It just wasn't feasible to hike on. It's just, I think it lives down in that valley somewhere. And so we get out of the car, and she goes into the back of the car and opens up the back door, because we brought equipment, camera equipment and sound equipment. And I pull out of the driver's seat, and I stand in front of the car, and I'm looking down in the valley where she says this thing lives. I'm like, it's very, very, very dark. Can't see a thing. And all of a sudden I hear this loud roar. And it was the kind of roar that I've never heard before, because it went on for about 10 to 20 seconds. And my first thought was, is that a plane? Is that a jet roaring overhead? And I'm looking around like, where is that coming from? What is that? And again, it shakes your chest. It's got a multi-tonal quality to it, where it's deep, deep bass noises all the way up to the higher range, and just growl, roar that was somewhat threatening. And poor Wendy, I'll call her Wendy, that's not her real name, screams, and her eyes get like wide. And she's like, that's it. Oh my God. And I'm like running forward because I want to see this thing. And
she's running backward.
Yeah. And she's like, what are you doing? And it roars again. This time I'm able to triangulate it, because you hear it once, you're like looking, where's that coming from? And you're like, where's that coming from? And it roared again. And again, it was 10 seconds at least. Like, rah! I'm like, wow. And this time I could tell where it was coming from, and it wasn't far away. I'm estimating a couple of 100 yards, 1,000 feet, maybe 500, in right where she said it was coming from. This dark valley, which dipped way down and then went way up. And it felt to me like it was right on the other side of this little valley, or maybe, I couldn't see. You couldn't see it, but it was close. And so I run forward again. I don't know why I'm running towards this thing. But Wendy's like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Get back in the car. I'm turning around and looking at her. I'm like, no, it's right there. It's right there. And she's like, get back in the car now. She's in the front seat now, screaming at me, like, get back now. And I saw her, like, she was very distraught. I'm serious. And because of her emotional state, I capitulated, like, fine, because I wanted to see it. And what better way to die than to have Sasquatch assault you? You know?
I don't know. I think of better ways.
I don't know. I'm for whatever reason, ghosts, UFOs, Sasquatch, out of it doesn't scare me.
Yeah.
I think early on I realized the universe, after my mom died, I was just consumed with fear. And I could not live that after 3 years. I thought, who's next? Who's someone in my family is going to die? I was living in such fear that I just reached this point where I'm like, that's it. I am leaving fear behind. I cannot do this anymore. I will not live this way. The universe is safe. What's the worst that can happen? You die. And dying, as you know, is extremely healing and wonderful, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, I'm like, yeah, fine. And I walked back to the car. I was hoping it would roar again or come out. And she's like, hurry. And I got back in the car. I'm like, you sure? You should go. Because she was going to get kidnapped. She felt, that's what she felt. I mean, it was communicating with her. She's very telepathic. This lady is psychic. It was so much fun to hang around her because she said, this is going to happen. And it would. It was astonishing. I remember going out to dinner with her once. And she says, you should know that I usually often get my dinner for free because the waitresses spill their food on me. I'm like, what? She's like, no, seriously. Just so you know. I'm like, oh, right, whatever. Sure enough, waitress comes with the food, sets mine down, and flips hers onto her lap. And a little piece of sauce comes, flings, just one tiny little dot hits me, but she's coated.
Wow.
Boy, the waitress just turned white. And I was watching closely. I'm like, is she going to trip the waitress? Because I was watching. Nope. She looks at me and just grins. I'm like, oh my gosh, Wendy, you are crazy. That's just one example of, a dozen. She's really amazing.
So with the Sasquatch, do you feel that he was wanting you to know that, hey, that's my woman?
I don't know, but
you
she was
get a feeling of what that roaring was all about?
No, I think she felt like it was being somewhat aggressive. And she told it, you can't do this. You're scaring me. And it stopped at some point. And she asked it, why are you contacting me? And it told her that, well, there's going to come a time on Earth when there's widespread disasters. And it's my job and yours to lead people to safety. And I've got a cavern here under the mountains, which is safe, where you can go. And
wow.
Which I thought, was really fascinating, because this, after researching Sasquatch from other people, have had that same communication. These guys are the watchers. They are the caretakers of our planet. And there are 50 some cases, probably closer to 100 now, where people have seen Sasquatch either next to grays, or coming out of a UFO, or going into a UFO, or there when a UFO is hovering overhead. There's a lot of cases with a very, very strong UFO connection, but the vast majority, no. These are just guys who are living all over our planet. We're not the only intelligent species. There's dolphins, there's Sasquatch, there's all manners of paranormal beings who are somewhat fifth dimensional, somewhat third, they can travel. And Sasquatch can do that. I interviewed one guy who was walking, this is in Central California, Northern California, by this river, and suddenly a Sasquatch appeared right in front of him. He watched it appear out of thin air. And the Sasquatch told him, I have the ability to do this. And then his female Sasquatch appeared, and there was a little Sasquatch kid. And and then it disappeared again. They had a brief communication and zip, gone. So they do have the ability, some of them, perhaps not all, because there's different types, to travel interdimensionally.
Yeah. Have either one of you been
Wow.
to SETI in Washington? James Gilliland's ranch?
No, I haven't. I do know someone who went there and had a Sasquatch experience.
Yeah, it's pretty prevalent. I've been there 4 times. I have not had my own Sasquatch experience, unfortunately, but it's pretty prevalent. I've talked to people who have had Sasquatch experiences, and one woman said that she watched the Sasquatch walk across the field where you do the sky watch and watch the ships come and go out of the mountain, and then it disappeared, and there was a ball of light that just flew off.
Yep, I've heard that before. One guy tried to shoot at Sasquatch. It disappeared in a blaze of light. I think this could be one of the reasons why we don't have Sasquatch bones everywhere.
Yeah.
Because they are spiritually advanced to a point where they aren't physical in the way that we are. And the fact is, we are interdimensional too. And if you talk to, well, it'd be nice if you could talk to people, but if you study spiritual masters and the histories of them, they achieve a state of consciousness where they have basically what's called a rainbow body. And they can ascend and travel physically through other dimensions. And look at the accounts of Padre Pio. He never left his little church there in Spain, but he was seen all over the world. All over the world, people reported him.
Baba G too.
Right. Yeah, we have that ability. We are. People say, "Oh, our ET's interdimensional." I'm like, yeah. So are you. So are all creatures. Trees are interdimensional.
Yeah.
You see them on the other side.
Right.
Yeah. Every entity is interdimensional.
We just forgot.
Except maybe gnats, mosquitoes, cockroaches, and flies.
Thank goodness.
I don't know about this, but I've never seen one on the other side. And I've read that they aren't there. And that's kind of on my bucket list because I don't know. I'm like, I really want to see if that's true because, what? Insects are cut out of the whole soul
Yeah.
thing. I don't know, but it's curious.
It makes sense. I mean, I don't know either, but I've heard, I think I read an Atlantis book about the flies and the mosquitoes and the gnats and the roaches that, the insects that don't have, how do I put it, aren't part of the kingdom where they have a purpose, if that makes sense. I mean, I guess some of them do, but
I can just sense it. There's a mantid looking at me somewhere going, hey, what are you talking?
Not the mantids, definitely not the mantids. Cockroaches,
I'm talking about
the flies, and I know, not the mantids. No.
You guys
And
are
the
good.
mosquitoes are not a positive purpose where they, I don't know. But anyway, that they were created in Atlantis times through negativity, negative energy, that type of thing. Is what one book, I can't remember what the book was I read on Atlantis that's had that theory, brought that theory forward. I'm like, well, that makes sense because I can't think of any positive reason for flies and mosquitoes and gnats. Maybe they have one, but.
Well, I have seen animals on the other side, all manners of them.
Yeah.
And, specifically my pets who have passed on.
Oh, yeah.
And I will never, ever forget the time my dog Maxine, who I've seen several times, saw her recently. It's been, 30 years, longer, 40 years since she's passed on. Well, let me think. It's probably closer to 45. But at any rate, she came running up to me and said, "Hi, Preston." Blew me out of the water. She spoke. Turns out that is a thing. I had to do my research again. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. But no, animals can speak. They learn how to speak.
Speak telepathically, because that's what I've experienced
Yeah.
telepathically with animals, where they're speaking to me in what I understand, kind of like Star Trek, the translator, universal translator, where they're speaking telepathically, where I hear it in English or in my mind, however it is. Is that what you mean?
Well, no, yeah, it was telepathic, but it was in English. It was words. But there are people here, I mean, animal whisperers. Cesar Milan is,
Yeah, I love him. I'm so in love with that guy.
It's amazing. And there are, I've seen some of the accounts of people like, oh, well, the reason your cat is doing this is because they're not, you moved its bed and it's pissed, or
Right.
it doesn't like the food. You changed food, didn't you? And the lady's like, oh my God, yeah, I did.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately people have the ability to be able to connect intuitively with their animals, and as long as they just trust that, because we're connected, animals are so psychic and intuitive anyway. We're the problem. And that's what Caesar says, right? He what does he do? He rehabilitates dogs and trains people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the problem. They're always telling us what they want or what their problem is and all of that, but we just are too blocked to interpret it.
A lot of people are contactees. No, I have yet to meet a contactee who's, a full-on contactee who doesn't have a very special relationship with animals, where they walk into a house and whatever pet there comes running up and into their lap. I'll never forget the time I walked into my sister-in-law's house. She had a new cat. This darn thing walks up to me, is looking at me, it's just staring at me, and it goes up on 2 feet and reaches out its hand to shake mine. Christy's looking at me like, oh my God, what does it do? I'm like, I don't know. So I'm like, nice to meet you. It was the coolest thing.
That's nice.
I love it. I do a lot of animal communication too. And I had a Mexican family who had 2 dogs that had passed, and they were very upset. And I actually went and sat with them, and the dog was speaking Mexican. So I
Spanish,
had to, Spanish. And I would tell them like what he said, and they'd say, oh, it means this. And so I'm communicating with the animal and speaking Spanish. It was hilarious.
That's awesome.
So cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. They know the language of their people, that they love. It was so sweet. And then there was another gentleman that came in and said, I see you're struggling with this. Let me help you. And he started translating from the other side.
There's the world's smartest dog. If you look it up, I think the guy who was training him, it knew more than 300-400 terms. He'd say, go get this stuffed animal. And there was a room filled to the brim with stuffed animals. Each one he asked, it would bring. I want the little blue bear with the blue buttons and the little red bonnet. And you look at the room and like, there's no way. The dog went straight to it. Absolutely understood far more than people realize. They are intelligent.
Oh, yeah.
Cats too.
Definitely.
Birds.
This cat that I have, I can just visualize one of his toys, and sure enough, within 5 minutes, he comes beep, 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 beep. Walking in, it's like, cool? Is this what you're looking for?
It's just amazing to me. I went to the zoo once, and there was a show about ravens. A guy was a trainer of ravens. He says, ravens, I forget how many words, but it's some 300 words or something. And they said they actually have the intelligence of about a 4-year-old child. I just happened to be with my 4-year-old nephew. And I looked at him, I'm like, that bird is as smart as you. And he looked up at me, he's like, huh. It was really
Thanks,
funny.
Uncle Preston.
But it's true. Scientists are now finding out, they always thought, gorillas and chimpanzees were the smartest, but birds are exceeding them in some ways. Ravens and mynah birds and crows.
Crows are so smart. I saw a documentary, you may have seen it, both of you, about the crow family, the crows that would recognize people in their community, and they would warn other crows if there was a stranger that came in the community, and they knew who was good and who was bad, that kind of thing. they communicated with each other on, in some kind of a language, of course, crow language. But as they studied them over the years, they got to understand what the crows were telling each other, and they could tell by how they observed the people in their community.
Yeah, I saw that show, I think.
It was really cool.
Yeah, and they actually taught their children.
Yes.
And they did a study where they thought, maybe it's just they're exposed to the same person, but no, they separated them. And the adult crows were teaching their children stuff that there's no way they could have known.
Mhm.
They actually taught them.
That's right.
That was so smart.
Through the generations that, yeah, they were
Yeah.
teaching them who's the good guys, who's the not so good guys, who will feed us, who will be mean to us, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Who
Yeah.
hears us?
Mhm.
So people
'Cause
are
that's
always
one
say,
thing.
yeah, people say, I want to meet an alien. I'm like, well, look at the life on Earth. Start studying dolphins.
Yeah.
Start studying,
Whales.
your
Elephants.
pets. Oh, I love elephants.
Yeah.
Yep. See my elephant here?
Mhm.
Oh, how cute. I didn't see that.
Yes.
I was looking at your ET or your spaceship that you have behind you with the colored lights on it. And I'm enjoying it very much.
Thank you. Yes. I am having fun drawing.
So fun. You know, I wanted to share a little story about the crows, and I know we're getting along in time. When this cat that I have, he's a handful. I've had cats my whole life, and this guy, but I love him. But when he was little, he used to skate, and I couldn't find him anywhere. And I have a pretty good yard, so I would hear the crows out there, and I have pretty good communication. I love the crows, really honor them. And I was like, "Hey, crows." Do you see that little black kitten anywhere with the really big feet? No, would you bring him back this way? And, crows kind of looking at me from the roof. And I just pictured, sent him the pictures, him, what he looks like, and him coming back home. Sure enough, 15, 20 minutes later, that cat comes tearing over the wall. And right behind him is 3 crows. Ah!
Whoa.
They
Oh,
brought
that
him
is so
home.
cool. Wow.
So we gave him a bunch of seed, and we did give him some sourdough bread. I know that's not the best for them, but they listen, but you have to have a good relationship too. You have to honor and respect them.
Mhm.
Yeah, the lady Wendy I was telling you about, who had the Sasquatch and UFO encounters, she could call dolphins too. So we went down to the beach. She's like, we're going to see dolphins, just so you know, I can call them. Sure enough, we weren't there very long, and came the dolphins.
Nice.
Doing the
Yeah.
little things. We're like, hi, hi. She was so amazing. She taught me a lot.
Nice.
You
Oh,
can
that's-
manifest anything. She says you just go there and you manifest it.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep. I lived
So
down at
true.
the beach for a long time in Newport, and I used to go out there when I'd be sad, and I'd be just one dolphin, just one dolphin. And pretty soon, they're all over the place.
Wow.
And I could just feel their love, and it'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And they would always be there. Didn't matter what time of the year. It was so cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to have a life as a dolphin. That would be
Let's
fun.
do it. Preston, I'll do it with you.
I've actually seen myself as a dolphin in an out of body experience, or been a dolphin in an out of body experience more than once.
Oh wow.
Mhm.
Let's do it, you guys. Let's do it.
We'll meet
All
in the
right.
dolphin realm in an out of body experience. We'll meet there.
I once dreamt I was a horse. That was really cool
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, wow.
because I could feel my arms go down into the hooves, and I was running. I'm like, wow, this is what it's like to be a horse.
Nice. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
felt
cool.
myself as a dragon before. I used
Wow.
to fly through the forest, and I always thought I was on something until I realized I was a dragon.
Wow.
Don't mess with
I
me,
made love
man.
with the dragon. I merged with the dragon, made love with the dragon. It was
Mm.
emerging. It was immense.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a reason dragons are so popular and prominent in our culture. And if you look into the ancient writings, I think they were real.
Mm-hmm.
They
Oh.
are. And we're going to start seeing them again.
Yeah.
Oh, that
I
would
have
be
no doubt in my
amazing.
mind. I'm actually getting ready to teach a course on the dragons and
Nice.
stuff in April, bringing them back. They're starting to actually get photos. There have been a few photos that have been like, you know how they have the cameras on top of the buildings where we're all being
I've
surveilled.
seen some videos. Yeah.
Matter of fact, I have one in my Soulful Living tribe of a dragon that was captured from one of those things. And the gal that does it, you know, she's true blue. She's really about, you know, reporting what is happening. She's had several people check the video and they're like, we see no proof of fakery here at all.
It's
And I was
wild.
like, yay.
Yeah.
Now, that would be
Yeah.
something. I did have an OBE dragon encounter, which was all kinds of fun. So
Yeah, they're awesome, but you mind your P's and Q's around them.
yeah,
'Cause they're very regal and
I have
powerful.
a photo. Yeah, they are. They're ancient. I mean, ancient. I have a photo of a plasma cloud, or a plasma that is shaped like a dragon, the top part of the dragon. And I felt that and I have it framed, and I felt so much when, after I analyzed my photos and realized, whoa, that's a dragon. I felt that she was a mama dragon.
Oh, wow.
And I'm getting emotional talking about her, but
Mm.
I feel her love. But yeah, it was in Montana when it was on Christmas, at Christmas. I never gotten plasma clouds in my photos because my sister and I are orb photographers and we have a business together, and she started getting plasmas. I'm like, I've never gotten plasmas. I've been taking pictures a lot longer than you, and you're getting all these really cool stuff. And here I just get these orbs, which are really cool. But so I said that night, okay, I want some plasmas. And I got plasmas galore. And one of
Wow.
them was a dragon, a mama dragon.
wow.
It
So
was very
cool.
Yeah.
Our world is so fantastic.
Mhm.
It's all here.
It is.
It's all here.
It
We
is.
just need to look.
I know. And I learned more and more from my photos too, that there is no out there. It's all in here.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Because when we take our photos, we're in the backyard, it looks like we're taking photos of the universe. And people say, where are you taking those photos? Where are you out? And I'm like, in my backyard. And it looks like the universe, like what's behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many.
Hey,
Anyway.
we are a part of the universe,
Mhm.
integral, indivisible.
Right.
And that's why I think we have all the power of the universe within us.
Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely. So good. Oh my gosh, what a great show.
I know that went by fast.
I know. I
As
can't
always.
believe we've been on this long. Preston, you are so much fun.
Oh,
This is so cool.
You
Thank you
too.
so much. Thank you so much for being here. This is
Hey.
fun. Maybe we'll get you back on in a couple of months. Would you pretty please, pretty please?
Sure. I love doing these shows.
Oh, it's fun. You just have so many experiences to share that covers such a vast array of things, and it's so beautiful, and it's so important that people hear this, because like me, I mean, I sit here with my mouth hanging open most of the time. I realize I'm supposed to be part of the running the show, and I'm just like, wow, because people need to know this is happening, because I feel like a lot of people have had experiences and brushed it off as, oh, that was just a dream, or oh, that was just a whatever, that are really having these kinds of experiences. And when they hear you talk about it and they hear, what it is that's going on, it will wake them up, to realize that they have these gifts, they've had these experiences, and maybe to go out and research and, do some investigation and do some practices and learn to open their minds, because that's what we're doing here. Kind of
Yeah.
basically, is to open the mind and
Yeah.
become all that we are.
If I could give anybody advice, it would be meditate, move past fear,
Yep.
Live in a space of love,
Yeah.
and recognize that life itself is unexplained.
Yeah.
I mean, you are having an unexplained paranormal supernatural experience at every single moment. So
Perfect.
That's a t-shirt. Are you ready for merch?
Thank you, Preston. Always a joy to talk with you. And hopefully if you come back, we can talk about your new book. You said you had some really strange experiences. You've started a new book, or you have a new book.
Yeah, volume
Coming out.
4 of Not From Here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, people need to know about this. Whew.
Nice. So maybe we
Cool.
can talk about that.
Yeah. Yay. Super fun. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yay.
And thank you everyone for watching again.
Don't forget to subscribe, ring a ding a ding, that little bell down there so you get notified when we're on. And be good out there.
You're no fun. All right. Mwah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.